This is footage taken on December 23rd. It shows the hallways of an emergency ward in Shanghai, overflowing with hospital beds and patients hooked up to IV drips and oxygen tanks. China is battling a wave of COVID infections, but it has officially logged only a handful of coronavirus deaths after the government redefined the criteria by which COVID deaths are counted. Just how severe is China's situation? Why is Omicron, a mild variant, wreaking havoc in China, and will it spill over to the rest of the world? I had this discussion and more with Dr. Shang Lin, former lab director of the viral disease branch of Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. Take a look. Thank you, Dr. Lin, for joining Zooming In today.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, let's talk about the epidemic in China. Beijing's hospitals and crematoriums have been overwhelmed. Many people have high fever for days, and fever medicines are running out in China. Is this normal? Why does China, especially in the north, have so many severe cases?
So definitely this is very abnormal, very unusual situation, or you can say it's totally unprecedented situation, very severe situation. So first, let me say this way. A lot of people think this upsurge of epidemic in Beijing is due to unlocking their zero COVID policies. I don't think so. Actually, as early as in late October and early November, Beijing and many parts of China has already suffering from a severe increase of the infected case of COVID. So because of the political need, the Chinese government concealed the information at the time. So people did not know that China already suffered tremendously for this new wave of the Omicron spreading. Not only just in China, but actually in different parts of the world. There was a significant increase of new variants spreading in different parts of the world. And China probably did not get the total waiver for these new waves. And so I think this is one fundamental reason for right now in since November and now in almost late December, almost 2 months period. So these virus has tremendous proliferation inside China, as well as rapid spreading in different ages of populations. And then secondly, I think the situation is very unusual is because right now, I think China is suffering not just from the Omicron, not just from COVID. And this year, the seasonal flu has an unusual high peak and probably the most severe in the last 5 years and has an early peak time. Usually you see a peak in late December, January, as well February to see the peak of seasonal flu. But this year in November, many parts of the world, especially in the north, on the north hemisphere, you see early arrival of the flu and also much higher peak. So the flu burden is tremendous this year. And also another virus, respiratory syncytial virus, is also on an unusual hike for this year. So there's a concept called triple demic. So it means the three pathogens are all in the big pandemic or epidemic situations in different parts of the world. So China probably suffer from these multiple waves of the different pathogens attack probably at the same time. So then you will see many people have more severe disease situation, more hospitalization rate. But at the same time, I think, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just saw a report from Radio Free Asia, and they said the severe cases is also likely caused by, a combination of Delta variant and Omicron. So we're seeing Delta in China as well. What do you think?
It's possible. I did see reports mention some part of China still detect Delta virus, but how widespread the Delta virus still existing in China, I think that's a puzzle. We don't know. And I don't think it's a simple combination of Delta and Omicron. I do believe more that there are other pathogens actually co-infected. Co-infection situation probably occur a lot more frequently than people expected, and so the overall burden is much stronger.
You said this is being accumulated for a while, but the question is, are we seeing the peak or the peak is still in the future?
I think the peak probably still in the future, because uh, usually, for example, the flu season definitely will peak higher in January and February. In China, in late January, you will encounter the Chinese Lunar New Year. More Chinese people will migrate during that time. So you are causing another wave of huge spreading of viruses at a time. And right now, probably still incubating, and you still see a lot of cases, of course, in Beijing and some of the northern part of China. But I think the southern part of China will suffer quickly soon. But just how severe, we don't know right now. And it depends on what exactly was going on in Beijing and some part of the North China or big cities. And I think the Chinese government still not transparent at all, and probably still lying about the actual situations. And people been questioning, it's kind of a very odd situation. Some different province reporting about different strain of SARS-CoV-2, different strain. It was so unusually like in different province, you identify different strain. We don't know whether it's true or not. And also, yeah, people do question about whether there are multiple variants or subvariants of the SARS-CoV-2 being circulating in China. But I believe on top of that, definitely there are other viruses. So I mentioned about influenza, I mentioned about respiratory syncytial virus. But at the same time, this year, human metapneumovirus as well as adenovirus and other respiratory pathogen is also in an upsurge. Even bacterial, even respiratory bacterial infection, for example, the group 8 streptococcus also is in an upsurge this year. So there could be multiple pathogens circulating in the high peak this time. It's very unusual situation and probably have something to do with uh, the hard lockdown and zero COVID policy in the last 3 years in China. So from this perspective, we need to think differently regarding about the whole pathogen. I call it biosphere. So you have so many different virus, so many bacteria circulating in human world. It's like in a big layer of a biosphere. So if you totally suppress the SARS-CoV-2, these kind of pathogens, these viral pathogens, and then later on it will bounce back, and then when other pathogen also being suppressed, they will bounce back when you have an environment. So now they even also even some of the Western scientists also being suspecting that the upsurge of the flu and RSV, even in a Western country, probably have something to do with the different containment policies or different vaccination policies in the Western society, and because of the many kids didn't have the chance to have exposure to regular season virus, regular RSVs, due to different restriction, different lockdown levels in different countries. So it's kind of like a immunity depth. So now these kids become more vulnerable to the seasonal flu as well as RSV, and probably to different variants of the COVID as well. But I think this is one of the reasons. But I think the fundamental reason right now in China, I believe, is multiple pathogens co-circulating and all rush to the high peak at the same time. So Chinese society facing a huge challenge now.
Right. Immunity debt. It seems like the Chinese government opened up at the worst possible time, the peak season for flus. What do you think their strategy is? Is it, finally catching up to the rest of the world to coexist with the virus, or they're planning on something else?
I think on the surface, it appears China opened up Now, eventually, they realize their zero COVID policy doesn't work, and so they have to resort to the new policy to coexist with the virus. But I don't think that's their purpose, because if that's their purpose to coexist with the virus, they can do it much earlier, and they know Omicrons has much lower pathogenicities much earlier. Early this year, they know it. Chinese scientists know it, and so I don't think they have the purpose to coexist with the virus, because in China, because of the tremendous burden of nucleic acid tests every day in so many big cities, right? China has already used up many of the Medicare savings, also as well for people retirement funds. All the money will actually being used for so-called zero COVID policy control measures, right? So they use out the money, and then Chinese society has become very like Japanese society, a lot of the senior people, right? The senior populations has grown tremendously, and the government knows it's a huge burden. And so many Chinese people also has all kinds of underlying disease conditions. So to the Chinese government, if they want the economy revived, if they want the society to still enjoy some benefits from youth generations, it's actually to the benefit of the Communist Party to let many senior people die.
Yeah, that I was gonna ask you that, because it just seems like the Chinese government is not trying to even control the virus. Are they just trying to let the virus go through society as fast as possible, get as many people infected as soon as possible, so they can just go through this whole thing and they can be back to normal? Is this their strategy?
That's part of the strategy. If they cannot control it, just go through this as fast as possible. But at the same time, I think it actually is more ulterior motive. It's their plan to eliminate a large population of senior people in China.
If you would like to watch the rest of it, please go to our website, zoomingin.tv, and become a member. $5 a month or $50 a year. Cancel anytime. You will have access to my extended interviews and full in-depth reports. For those who are not quite ready to become a member yet, you are welcome to visit our website as well. We have all the shows you can watch on YouTube, plus transcripts on our website. YouTube only allows for a short description, but on our website, we post full transcripts. You can simply donate to us on that website as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you very soon.